Welcome to Search for Signs. My name is Gary Willing. If this information interests you, please press the like and subscribe button and press the bell for notifications. Good day to you. It is July the 14th, 2020, and I hope you're having a good time doing what you're doing wherever you are. All right. I have no questions to cover in this video, which is a rarity actually, but again, I want to extend the invitation to whoever wants to ask a question about what we talk about here on Search for Signs, about Maitreya, the Masters of Wisdom, about his priorities and so forth. You're always welcome to ask a question. By posting your question as a comment is one way, and the second way is to email me directly at searchforsigns@mail.com. And then in the next video, I will give you my answer via an audio response. All right, hopefully that helps. Okay, now before I start talking about what I want to talk about, because this does kind of relate to it, this gentleman here, in the picture, his name is George C. Marshall. George C. Marshall was one of the Joint Chiefs of Staff during World War II, and then eventually became the Secretary of State. Now, it is my opinion, my humble opinion, that in the future, when we look back at this man historically, we will see that really the work that he did, which is still kind of unbeknownst to most of us, could very well have been the key to our own survival as a species. Because under his inspiration and guidance and leadership, for the first time in human history, one country shared freely with another country, or several countries. And then that process of the principle of sharing, which will eventually be a global plan and take place globally, it happened regionally, really, but the results were quite extraordinary. Now, the principle of sharing had to start governing the minds of the world leaders back at the time that Maitreya made the announcement that he was going to come back into the world. That was one of the prerequisites. The other one was a measure of peace, and then the political houses had to get their houses in order and clean up some of the corruption that was going on. Apparently, it didn't have to be perfect, because we're not living in a perfect world, and we, look back historically, none of that happened perfectly, anyway, but there had to have been a measure of it. And I do think that because of the efforts of George C. Marshall, that helped to fulfill one of the prerequisites for Maitreya coming back. But also, the fact of the matter is that, according to the masters, the principle of sharing is the only way to save ourselves. We have to do it. And so, if you were looking also at the crisis that faces all of us every day now, the coronavirus, I do want to read this quote from him and kind of have it pertain to what we are seeing for ourselves day to day, trying to live a normal life in the face of this major crisis. So I was very careful to send Mr. Roosevelt every few days a statement of our casualties. I tried to keep before him all the time the casualty results, because you get hardened to these things, and you have to be very careful to keep them always in the forefront of your mind. And as we go through life to day to day now in 2020, we have to realize that there's a pandemic going on, right? But also when we see the numbers on TV, either every night or every other night or once a week or whenever it is we happen to catch it on the news, the numbers keep going up. The case numbers keep going up, and the deaths around the world and in the United States and other countries are going up. But each one of those people that have died, that's somebody's grandmother or grandfather, aunt, uncle, mother, father, brother, sister, child, grandchild. That's somebody that was here last year at this time, and because of this virus are not here anymore. Now, I think that the pattern and the trend of this pandemic is going to mimic very similarly to what happened during the Spanish flu, where they had a smaller wave and then this huge giant middle wave and then a larger third wave, and then back to where life kind of got back to where it was. Now, I want to read an excerpt of Benjamin Creme's Master's article that I read in the last video, Health and Healing Part 2, and then I want to read the case for sharing, because they kind of go hand in hand, okay? So the part that I want to read is, it says, disease is ultimately the result of wrong relationship to our higher self, the soul, to our brothers and sisters throughout the world, and to the whole of which we are a part. By the misuse of soul energy, we set in motion the causation. By wrong relationship to our fellows, we bring about disequilibrium and disharmony and illness of all kinds. Through our sense of separation, we cut ourselves off from the healing potencies which everywhere surround us. So before I get into the case for sharing, it seems to me that just from this one paragraph about disease, the esoteric cause of disease, whether it's an individual or regionally in groups or now, globally as a karmic, a world karmic event that's going on today with this pandemic, that it's caused by the ultimate cause of this disease, just like every other disease, is the belief that we are separate. Therefore, in a very real sense, if you read the case for sharing, that coming from the same, the ideas from the same master, another very important point about the need for sharing, not only for bringing about peace and avoiding self-destruction from war, but it could mean also that we could either severely mitigate this coronavirus pandemic by sharing, or ultimately eradicate it by sharing. Because the only way for us as a people to live as one is to share. We cannot live as one and see ourselves unified, or the truth of the unity of humanity and so forth, unless we are sharing. So, and that's ultimately, like this master said, is the cause of all diseases, really. And coronavirus is a disease. All right. So here we go. The case for sharing. There will shortly come a time when humanity must reach a great decision. Troubled as it is on all sides by divisions and cleavage, a new approach must be found to the many problems which beset it. Without such a new approach, there is little doubt an ominous future would await mankind. Historically, there is no precedent for the present situation and conditions on earth. Never before have so many souls coexisted on the planet. Seldom, if ever, have the divisions between the groups been so painful and deep. Never has man controlled such forces of destruction as are now at his command, giving him power to destroy the life in every kingdom. When such destruction threatens, man must take stock and devise new ways to proceed. Of all the possible ways, there yet remains but one untried. Throughout his history, one simple answer has eluded man's grasp. The principle of sharing is the only one which will answer man's needs and solve his many problems, for it is fundamental to the plan of God himself. Without sharing, man denies his divinity and stores up for himself all future woes. Without sharing, unholy chaos reigns and withholds from man the justice which is his by right. Sharing alone provides the opportunity to establish God's plan of brotherhood and to remove from the world forever the sin of separation. How lacking sharing could man continue? How without sharing could he hope to survive? So great are the dangers in the present imbalance between the nations that luck alone would not suffice to see him through. A deadly sickness, separation and greed, prevails upon the earth and calls for drastic measures to effect a cure. The simple cure is at hand despite the outer chaos. The long-drawn testing of mankind is all but at an end. Arrayed against the forces which still hold man in thrall, the hierarchy of light retrace their steps and stand together under the banner of truth. Maitreya's mission begins with an appeal to men to share. His knowledge of men's hearts leave him certain of their choice and certain of their readiness to make the needed changes. Quote, "Man must share or die," unquote, he has said, knowing well that men will choose to share and live and to create with him a better future. Until now, all efforts to solve man's problems have been directed to maintaining the present structures, however unjust they have proved themselves to be. The cleavages on every hand cry out for resolution and await the application of the law of justice. Fear grips many today as they hear their leaders wrangle. A time is coming when they will leave their leaders far behind. Man is awakening to the call for freedom and needs only true leadership to set the world to rights. Maitreya has come to show the way and to lead men to brotherhood and justice. A new era opens under his wise direction, which will demonstrate the true divinity of man, establishing the means of sharing and cooperation, and thus fulfilling the plan of God. Remember to take action and help SOP save our planet. Thanks for listening, and we look forward to talking to you again in future videos.